Hey people, Anthony 4x4 Diesel. Let's have a quick chat about fuel filters, extra fuel filters and fuel filters. Okay, so on our vehicles, in the 3 decades I've been owning and driving, maintaining our vehicles, friends, family, customers, whatever, I have never ever fitted an extra fuel filter on any of those vehicles, and I do not use them on our own vehicles. Okay, so we've got a bit of experience off-road, travelling, outback stuff, on the tracks, in the workshop, 4-wheel drives, blah blah blah. Now look, this is the balance. Certainly extra fuel filters help filtering fuel, there's no argument there. Okay, the more filters you could put 4 filters and I'd find debris in all of them. Okay, they'd all be helping to clean the fuel. So why don't we just put one on there, you're thinking, right? Because a lot of people do, and a lot of companies want to sell you a fuel filter. Well, this is the problem we've got. Both ourselves, all the people on our trips, and all the trips we see people on, when we're out all those places and you talk to people, all the people without the extra fuel filter generally haven't had any problems. And so many people through the workshop and on those trips that have had problems also have extra fuel filters, so they're dumbfounded as to why it didn't solve or stop the problem. And that's exactly the experience and the reasons why we make the decision to not spend the money, or rather save the money for something if it happens. I put a fuel filter on this car, that car, the other car, and then there's extra filters to change. Over say 10 years you could spend $1,000 on a filter kit and some filters. Well, worst case scenario, there's $1,000 towards a set of injectors, right? So you've got to weigh it up. You've got to make a decision what suits best for you. If you're living on a property out the middle of nowhere and the fuel's a bit dodgy out of that tank, I'd probably suggest some other pre-filtration method before it even goes into your tank would be more ideal, so that you can monitor and see the fuel, some sort of clear container. We've briefly talked about it in other videos, but when it comes to that sort of fuel, you really want to see it and go, look, I'm not going to put that in my tank, we've got a problem here. That's the sort of situation you want to take to it, or you might want to run an extra fuel filter anyway. That's up to you. But extra fuel filters, for those reasons, in my opinion, not needed and generally a waste of money. Now, the other factor you've got to take into account is the problems with extra fuel filters. So what are the problems? Well, the finer you go, the better it filters, right? But the finer you go, why do you think the manufacturer didn't put multiple filters or a finer filter than what they chose? They went for the finest one that still allows the vehicle to generally work without any problems. Now, you can put a finer one and say, oh, I haven't had any problems. Well, guess what? You're lucky. Quality manufacturers don't deal in luck. They don't put a 2 micron filter on all the Toyota range and then, look, 90% will be okay, so 10% might have problems. So that only leaves a few million people in dealerships going, mate, my car's on a tow truck, right? Do you get it? Okay, so about the 5 or 6 micron mark is what they go with, and that works well. So if you're going to add an extra filter, I would still recommend you only add a 5 micron thereabouts. There's no point really. I'll give you some more fuel filter information for that extra fuel filter, right? So at the servos, the pumps are supposed to have a filter on them that's generally at 30 micron, okay? So if you put a 30 micron on under your bonnet, you're kind of wasting your time, it's not doing anything. So you've got a couple of options. You could put a 10 micron as a pre-filter before the main OE filter that's on the vehicle. That's going to catch a bit more stuff before it gets, so that's not a bad idea, okay? That's one way to do things. And you can get really crazy and put 2 extra filters, or you can do it the other way. What people do is, because your factory filter's got the light set up on it, and then you put your extra filter after that. Now, I wouldn't put a 2 micron, but if I was forced to put an extra filter, this is what I would do. I would put a 5 micron after. So the first filter from the tank is the OE one, then I would put a 5 micron after that. So whatever that filter didn't catch, hopefully the second one helps. But we already know that it's not going to help, because this small amount of what gets through isn't the cause of problems with diesels and any sort of diesel injection problems. Most of the problems, fact of the matter is, wear and tear. They've just done the kilometres, they're worn out. I think it's like expecting more than 120,000 Ks out of a good set of off-road tyres. Like, you're just dreaming, it's not going to happen. So having an extra filter might prolong the life of, say, your injectors or your pump, but remembering on the Toyotas, on the 1KDs, for example, we don't see any problems with supply pumps whatsoever. Even when people have put unleaded through them, they've had contamination, they have water through them. Don't get me wrong, oh yeah, yours has been replaced when you got, because when you go to the Toyota dealership, they just go to town, don't they? And that's who the insurance companies trust. The big insurance companies trust the big companies, because the big companies are all the best, right? They've all got to be in together, trusting each other, okay? So, you know, the $10,000-$15,000 fuel system clean is not uncommon, because, you know, you got to do the job right, and that's the end. It's just an automatic thing, and then people get it done, and then they believe that's what it needed, and they share that information. But the fact of the matter is, you know, we hear of heaps of people that have put the wrong fuel in or had contamination, and if they get to it soon, often they don't have problems with those full DLC injectors. We've seen a lot of injectors come through with contamination, and you know, the people said the vehicles will run fine, they just change them as prevention. So a little bit of water can get through. Rarely do we see any of the fuel lights come on the Toyotas, the water light, do you know what I mean? It's more commonly the pressure light, which is also very rare, so you should always carry that spare fuel filter. As soon as that's what we're talking about, always carry spare OE fuel filters. Both the one for the 1KD underneath near the tail shaft, which is the, you know, the transfer filter, if you like, call it that. And what's this truck doing? I'm just watching him for a minute coming outside of the line. Another one, Tex, I'll tell you what, these truck drivers, they're going to be getting some mail soon with all these new cameras around detecting phone use and whatever. Them sitting there watching their movies on the steering wheel, texting everyone, and all the things they're doing all over the road, they're going to be getting some mail. But anyway, fuel filters. So, you know, you can do, there's a speed camera on the other side as well. There's your Kluger speed camera, gets you out the back window, so everyone beware of that. Just sit on the speed limit, use the Waze app to give you all the information you need. Don't touch your phone while you're driving. You can put a 4x4 diesel video up in your quad lock up on the windscreen there, and you can have a bit of a browse of that while you're looking at your windscreen. No different to browsing your radio, and you're not touching your phone, but mainly you're listening. Don't be staring at it. Like when you look at your rear view mirror, don't take your eyes off the road for more than 0.01 of a second. It's a quick glimpse into your mirror and back again. Don't stare in your mirror, don't stare at your phone. Bada bing, if you stop the lights, you can do what you want because you're not moving, right? So that's common sense, uncommon sense. Anyway, that's what we do on this channel. Common sense, uncommon sense, save you some money. We're in it for you, not for me, like everybody else. So if you like, subscribe, turn the bell on. What else have we got on fuel filters? Fuel filters, not much really. Follow the recommended change intervals if they don't have a change interval. My recommended change interval for fuel filters, doesn't matter if it's petrol or diesel, about the 40,000 K mark for the under the bonnet filter. The transfer one they talk about every 20, they get quite dirty. If you get manufacturing debris in those, they can be the cause. The stuff from there can get into that venturi. That can be actually the cause of that fuel transfer problem not happening. So just be aware of that. Bonus information for those people that hang around. Under the bonnet, you know, your fuel filter for your petrol engines, sometimes they're more like 20,000-30,000 Ks, but, you know, thereabouts. This is what I want to say about petrol fuel filters. This is what's going to happen if you haven't changed it. And we'll talk about in-tank filters in a minute as well, and then we'll wrap it up. So, petrol fuel filter, this is what's going to happen. So diesel, it's kind of a bit more sensitive. Too much talking, I think I need a drink. So diesel's a bit more sensitive, so you actually want to change it as prevention fairly regularly, like, you know, the 20, 30, 40,000 K thing. On the Hiluxes, they're only 40 bucks or something genuine. There's only one. Just change it every 20,000, mate. 40 bucks every 20,000 Ks. Who cares, right? I'd say that's a good interval. Once a year, something like that. How long are you and the vehicle going to be around for? What's 40 bucks once a year? Anyway, right, so do that. But on the petrols, this is what happens if you get a blocked filter. It doesn't contaminate the injectors or the fuel system or anything like that. You've got nothing to worry about. This is a positive to petrol engines, okay? This is what happens. The filter, it's fine, it will become blocked up and the fuel won't be able to get through. So what that means is generally it's not going to not start or it's not going to not run, but when you drive the engine and rev the engine and load the engine under conditions that it needs more fuel, typically, you know, the more accelerator, not in neutral, probably under load, but maybe in neutral, depending how bad it is, it's going to be starved of fuel. It's going to flat spot. It's going to be like, who's had an LPG vehicle? So when you're running out of gas, it's going to feel just like that, okay? So as you accelerate, it's going to go boom, and you're going to go through the windscreen. As you back off, it's going to take off again. That could be a blocked petrol fuel filter, right? So we We've had that before. Last one I remember was a Ford Transit van, so there you go. Keep that in mind. Blocked filters. It can happen like that in a diesel as well. Okay, but generally in a petrol, that's all that's going to happen. So then you get your filter changer in business, right? And this is why I want to save you hundreds of dollars on your in-tank petrol filters. Now, I don't have a lot of experience with them at all, because I go, what? Pull the whole tank out to change a stupid filter that they happen to put in the tank instead of having an external one for 10 bucks, 20 bucks, 30 bucks, easy to change. That is absolute stupidity. It's like they've done it to make some money because, well, they haven't got wheel bearing repacks and all this other maintenance that used to be on vehicles. It's like they're creating work, because it's just a dumb idea. Wouldn't you agree? Let me know in the comments. Why would you put a filter in the tank that you've got to pull the tank out to do maintenance? It's just ridiculous. Okay, so my recommendation is don't change them. How crazy is that, right? So let me know in the comments if there's any makes or models that it causes problems, in case anybody thinks, oh, I'm going to follow that advice. Disclaimer, don't follow that advice if you're going to blame problems on me, and check all the comments first, in case there's a vehicle technician out there that can say, hey, on this particular make and model, if you do that, this could happen. And they could be wrong, but check the comments. Just because they say it doesn't mean it's right. They might be right. I might reply. Check the comments. Let's see what happens. But for my clients, my friends, my family who have petrol engines, that's my reckon. I said, look, don't worry about it. What do they want to do? So what we do, we at least push it out to double or half, if you know what I mean. So if it says do it at 50, we'll do it at 100 maybe. Or we might push it at 150, 200. The more it's my car, the more I don't do it. Does that make sense? So I'm going to kind of go, let's do that every 7 or 8 years, something like that, because things do get old and deteriorate. So it's worth doing every now and then, but maybe a lot less than what they're saying. And this saves you a heap of money on a lot of services, because on a petrol engine these days, long life spark plugs, air filter easy to change, brake fluid every 40,000, oil filter every 10 or 15,000, depending what the interval is. You can do the oil more often if you like, twice as often, at least every 6 months. That's what I recommend. But we're going back to fuel filters now. Right, back to fuel filters. Thank you. You know, that in-tank one, mate, they're going to quote you $1,000 for a service. And what are they doing? Oil filter, spark plugs, air filter, cabin filter, and this fuel filter, which is more than half the cost of the service. So you say, do me a favour, take off the parts and the labour for that fuel filter. I want to leave that for now. And as long as they take off the right amount of money and it comes down to $300 or $400, then you can go ahead and do the service. Or you might just do it yourself, because how easy is it to change the oil? We got oil change play. Check our playlists, right? Change your oil filter, change your air filter. It's all in playlists, it's all in videos. Use the search function on our channel. Long detailed videos with all the information you need. Anyway, that's it. That wraps this one up. It's a bada bing, bada boom, alright? And you take care out there. That's fuel filters.